the man that I want to bring again, I talked about him a little earlier, Mr. Scott Cornell, again, the Vice President of Transportation at Travelers. Scott, how are you, sir?
On today.
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for asking, man. I hope you had a good week. And I see the product placement with the logo in the back. So I think marketing is
Oh,
definitely
I
taking
drew
care
it
of you.
myself. I mean, my talents are. Listen, I need to have you introduce me. Your description of me earlier when I heard you talking about it, best ever. So I need you to go with me wherever I go. Yeah,
I can do that. I can do that. No,
you make me sound way better than I normally do. So
well, you've done a lot, man, and I think that needs to be talked about. Anytime I have somebody on What the Truck, I try to show love and man, I really was doing some digging into your LinkedIn profile this past weekend. Like you've done it all, you've seen it all, and it's just great to have you on the show.
yeah, I love being on. So looking forward to doing more with you in the future too.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, let's just talk about your specialty because you are no stranger to this. Theft is your specialty. I mean, not committing it, of course, but helping prevent it from happening and recovering it if it does happen. So, when we start, I want to just kind of talk how do we start thinking about theft? Like, what are your general thoughts? I mean, obviously you've seen it, you've been around it, but kind of walk like what is the current status of what you're seeing right now in the industry?
Theft is at an all-time high. So I've been doing it about 30 years, cargo theft and supply chain security investigations, things like that. And right now, theft is at an all-time high. And you're going to see me. We have a great research team that grabs some information for me when we do these with you guys. So you may see me looking at my notes a little bit here and there because there's a lot to remember for today. But I'll jump actually ahead a little bit on the talking points because you asked, what are we seeing in theft in general? So theft, to me has always been like the current on a river, right? There's an undercurrent that is pretty consistent every day. We see, there's going to be the same certain types of theft that we see every day, and then that top current's going to change. You're going to see adjustments and things like that. And one of the things we've always talked about is cargo thieves are really good at two things in particular, and one of them being knowing what to steal and when to steal it. So if we get back to our original question, cargo theft in general increased by 13% in the second quarter, and that's just one quarter after another we've seen over the past few years where we're seeing increases, no flatlining, no decrease, anything like that, right? But metals, so every year a specific commodity will pop. And this year it's been metals so far. So metals specifically are up nearly 96%. These statistics are all from CargoNet, that supplies statistics to the industry. I think they do a great job with their statistics. So as you hear me quoting numbers on this stuff, it's going to be CargoNet numbers. So in Q2, in 2024, CargoNet had 27 metal thefts reported, but for this same quarter this year, they've had 53. So again, nearly a 96% increase. And metals are involved in everything. And copper is leading that. That's the metal that leads that. And when you have a world that's electrifying itself, including electronic vehicles and all these other things, copper is going to be very valuable. Metals are going to be very valuable, and you're seeing unprecedented growth in this. And copper's trading at near or above record highs right now. And when that happens, you're going to see it get targeted.
Definitely. I remember being a broker and I had a copper shipment, believe it or not. It was actually stolen. And I'm sure you like, well, yeah, that's common sense. But I was at the time, I was like, why? And then I dug into it more and I didn't realize, how much it could be repurposed, it could be sold, it can be dropped in different places. So I get that. Now, let me ask, I mean, the more valuable, this is, I mean, is it the more attractive it is to thieves? I mean, are they, doing, I know electronics have been big, cars have been big, but, is there more of a strategy here or is it just a straight line like, hey, grab and dash type thing?
Yeah, so sometimes it has to do with value, sometimes it has to do with what's going on. Again, this is why we always say they're really good at figuring out what they need to steal and when they need to steal it, right?
Right.
So last year, sometimes we understand why a commodity pops, sometimes we don't. Last year, as an example, the hot commodities were appliances like refrigerators and then vacuums. And did that have to do with catastrophic events, people rebuilding homes in areas where there were storms and hurricanes and stuff like that? Maybe, but Is there a direct correlation? We don't know. Metals really are a subcategory of the building materials category that we actually refer to when we talk about cargo theft. Metals have always been a targeted commodity. Throughout my career, I've seen metal theft go up and down through the cargo theft world. Uh, there's always metal theft, but then you see these big spikes like we're seeing, and sometimes that is driven by things like pricing. We're seeing skyrocketing demand for metals in renewable energy, electronic vehicle production, data centers, smart infrastructure, things like that. So, and it's both bulk and scrap copper that's getting stolen. But last week I heard about a load of brass that was stolen in the industry. Some of it's being melted down, some of it's being resold for good money. We've all heard about the catalytic converters being targeted. They have palladium and platinum in them. Studies show that roughly for every 10% rise in metal prices, there's a 20% uptick in theft around those devices. So there's some definite correlation with pricing, but it's also what's in demand, what's it being used for, what is the world needed for.
No, absolutely. I mean, you can definitely tell, Scott, that like, thieves just don't mess around. I mean, it's crazy. And I was thinking this in my head. I was on a flight this morning and I was excited about this interview, and I still am. And what are some of the schemes, right? And kind of the methods that these, I mean, I'll just say it, I mean, robberies, I mean, they're heist. I mean, what are some of the strategic methods that you're seeing right now? Is there a common theme amongst all these type of theft efforts from these cargo thefts?
Yeah, so there's really two categories for cargo theft. We talk about this, and I'm glad that we're always talking about this, so we're getting the vernacular right when we do these shows, right? There's really two methods of cargo theft. There's what we call straight theft because it's pretty straightforward. They physically go out and they steal the freight where it sits, truck stops, drop lots, parking lots, and then there's strategic theft where they basically trick you into giving them the freight. And when it comes to metals, we're seeing both methods used. They will follow loads out of the distribution centers where the metal's coming from in the northeast, southeast, anywhere they're coming from, they will follow those drivers out. And if that driver stops in what we call the red zone, which is really anywhere in that first, let's say 150 to 250 miles, they'll wait for that driver to go in, take a break, get a meal, use the facilities, get gas, purchase road snacks, whatever it is they're going to do, and they'll steal the load while the driver's away from the truck. When it comes to strategic theft, the most common method that the industry sees is what's called the double brokering scam. And that's where they basically pretend to be the trucking company to get assigned to the load. And then when they get assigned to the load, they pretend to be the freight broker and they reassign it and have it shipped where they want to. And a lot of this is being conducted by these large international sophisticated crime rings that we've seen infiltrate cargo theft over the last 4 or 5 years. And one of the things that's been interesting this year about metal loads is no matter where they're being stolen, a lot of them are being pushed through Arizona. I'm in Arizona, so it's a little unusual for me to see, but a lot of times now we're seeing them pushed through Arizona. What's the reasoning behind that? Well, one, the CTIP's Cargo Theft Task Force and the other task forces that concentrate on cargo theft in California are doing a really good job uh, over this past year or two with recoveries and making some really good busts and things like that. So we think they want to stage the load in Arizona, get it on a truck so it can go straight to the port and moved out of the country. We do see a lot of these loads moved out of the country and sent abroad. So we think they want to stage it here so that they're not taking the risk of being caught in California with it, with one of those task forces, or it's going to go south into Mexico from Arizona. So we're seeing loads from all over the country end up being staged here in Arizona at one point.
That makes sense to me for sure. Scott, I want to kind of talk about, there was a graphic that production just had queued up, and I want to show it to you specifically because I think you could speak to this. It was when it came to the commodities that were most popular for theft. I want to say, and if we have this graphic, guys, um, it was food and beverage, and there was a different commodity as well that was popular in the most populous states. Number one was California, number two was
Right.
Texas, and then number three was Illinois. Can you speak to, I mean, population, of course, I'm sure would be that, the reasoning behind, those kind of being hot spots, but is there any type of reasoning as to, all right, why food and beverage? Where does that stuff go? And why these spots in these states specifically, to your point, as well as, Arizona too?
Yeah, when all things are normal in the cargo theft world, so great question, right? When all things are normal in the cargo theft world, and that's it's kind of strange to say, but when things are normal, food and beverage will be your number one targeted
Yep.
commodity, and largely because it's very untraceable. You don't ping it on the internet, you don't register it for a warranty, it goes away, the evidence is consumed. You can only chase food and beverage for so long before it's just gone. Whereas a load of electronics, TVs, you name it, you can find those months down the road, even if you find a partial load. But the food and beverage stuff disappears quickly. It's easy to move. It's easy to disguise. It's largely untraceable. Uh, you know, People want, need, and use it and buy it every single day, so it's easy for them to get rid of. Household goods is usually number two. When you talk about the geography of it, it depends on what you're talking about, which method, straight theft or strategic theft. When it's straight theft, it's going to be primarily around those. California is always going to be number one. It always has been. Then, Texas is number two, and Illinois number three, like you said. And those positions can shift, but California has always been number one. Well, what do they all have in common? Port cities, large population density, high, strong economies, arterial highways that go through there, the ports and the surrounding areas around the ports. When it comes to strategic theft, we've really seen that geographic map change a lot, because with strategic theft, they can actually be anywhere and target freight anywhere. So we're seeing cargo theft on that strategic scale move to what we would consider non-traditional areas for cargo theft. Those are the things that those areas have in common, pretty much.
Scott, I could talk to you for hours about this. I'm so fascinated. So I want to kind of talk in terms of a broker because, again, I did it. I've done it multiple, both international as well as domestic. So kind of walk me through as a broker and really a carrier as well. What can I be doing? Somebody in my seat be able to do to prevent cargo theft? Like, what is something that I should always be checking for? What process should I always be following when it comes to prevention?
Well, you used a key word there, process. So when we work with our clients, when I talk to clients or I'm working with anybody, I teach process first, right? Let's not jump right to technology. Let's not jump to solutions that are supposed to be the fix all. Let's get good process and procedures in place first. And that's whether you're trucking or freight brokers or anything like that. If you're in trucking, the next level would be, hard locks, deterrence, things like that. And then your third layer would be technology, use of covert tracking, things like that. If you're a freight broker, TAPA, the Transport and Asset Protection Association, just released the TAPA freight broker security requirements. That really puts a good baseline of process and procedures in place for freight brokers on how to vet carriers. And that's really, as a freight broker, that's the key thing right now. Making sure that you are dealing with who you think you're dealing with, that the person you're talking to or the person that's trying to get that load really is ABC Trucking. And you can do that through, like I said, those TAPA standards give a good baseline. But there is some really good technology and some services that have come out over the last couple of years that are that final layer that a freight broker can add to help vet carriers.
No, I completely understand and think that process is something we should follow. And the inevitable is always going to happen, right? If a load does get stolen, I mean, for my listeners out there, do you have any tips, right, on how to recover a stolen load properly and kind of make up, that loss that you're gonna have to tell your customer, you're going to have to, kind of speak with your driver about as well?
Yeah, for us, we have our SIG team, our special investigations group that recovers cargo for our clients as often as possible. I think in general, we started talking about metals. Metals is a particularly difficult commodity to recover unless it's some kind of custom metal or custom product that's easily identifiable. It's going to be hard to identify. There's things out there that can help you when it comes to metal in particular, like some microdot technology systems where they have these almost microscopic dots that actually have serial numbers in them and information in there, and they're registered with a secure database that law enforcement can access, things like that. Sometimes, if you find it in a warehouse and it's been taken off the truck and it's been removed from everything else that identifies it, you have to have these ways to identify it. Sometimes you're seeing electroplating of codes on the copper wiring in particular. As a last ditch effort, if you're just moving, raw metals or plates or pipes or something like that, you can go get a UV light marker, and just put numbers on it or put your company name on it, things like that, so that it would only show up under a UV light. There's different ways, but you have to figure out some way that you can identify that commodity. In general, for recoveries, obviously you're always going to call 911 first, but then
Right.
you have to have a plan. You have to have a plan in place at your company on what is everybody's job, because if you're trying to figure it out during the theft, it's not going to go well for you.
Definitely. I think that is great and sound advice. And, to kind of wrap up and kind of put in perspective what you said and, the notes I have, I mean, having freight marked, right, being coded, traceable, I mean, it's going to give law enforcement a chance whenever you do make that call to 911. But then, you know, if it's stolen and not recovered, where do I go from there? I mean, I know I got to talk to my boss if I'm a broker, or I got to explain to the ABC trucking company, like, hey, like, this is an issue, but like, where else should I go?
Well, that's, for us, that's where Travelers comes in, right? We're going to help you with that, help you handle that claim, and then do that. And in general, you're going to reach out to your insurance carrier and work with them ideally. So,
That's awesome. Hey, that was an alley oop to you. So I was Kobe there, and you just put it in the rim like
I'll take it.
Shaq. So I appreciate it.
Hey, great first show with you, Malcolm. Great to be on with you. Thanks for giving me some time today.
Hey, thank you so much. Again, Scott Cornell with Travelers Insurance. Man, just a great guest, an awesome guest. And